Go take up your book. You ram too much. Those were the words echoing from my mother as I rolled in the grass and laughed. And for those of you who don't speak Jamaican patois, it means go and pick up a book. You play too much. A very common sentiment among Jamaican parents. Hi, my name is Nakia McDonald. I am a teacher by profession, an artist by passion, and a self-proclaimed poet from Jamaica, where we greet by saying, Wagwan. As a child, I thought writing was a death sentence and poetry belonged in the cemetery. Unlike many other poets whose teachers and parents nurtured their gift from an early age, I was a kid making fun of those kids. If you had told me that one day I would be standing on a stage talking about poetry, I would have laughed in your face and went right back to rolling in the grass. I was 21 years old when poetry found me in the quiet of my bedroom. There, the world was going through at the time what was called a recession, and Jamaica had just announced what is called a wage freeze, where there were no new hires. I had just finished my teaching diploma with no clear job prospects in sight. At that time, I was also navigating adulthood, navigating unemployment, and all the emotion that comes with being a 21-year-old woman in Jamaica, trying to figure out what to do with my life. My mind was crowded and thoughts discombobulated. I was struggling, wishing to find somewhere that I could put these thoughts. So I started writing little text messages to myself, attempting to put these feelings into words. I alternated between book and cell phone, but the Scorpio in me needed some privacy. And if you grew up in Jamaica, you would know privacy in any home is a luxury. So I wrote in codes. I would make sure that he, she, they, them became trees and storms and hurricane. Poetry gave birth at that point in my life. And it's clear that personification was my favorite literary device. Poetry became a safe haven, in a time when I needed it most, a place where I could tell my truth without naming it. At that time, I didn't realize it, but little did I know, I was developing a tool that would eventually help me to survive the hardest seasons of my life. Fast forward, it is 8 years later. I am an exuberant teacher. I am living the dream. My students are excelling, and I had just accepted a teaching position in Chengdu, China. I packed up my bags and I moved halfway across the world. Well, completely across the world. I was exploring the new city, navigating the food, the culture shock, the language barriers, when I had received the most earth-shattering news of my life. My father had passed. How does one grieve in a foreign country with no chance of returning home and barely enough money to make it to payday? No one was coming to my rescue. My mind was louder than it had ever been. I was quietly losing myself. What should I do? What would you do? For me, I take up my book and I wrote. Sometimes I wrote twice per day, one tear-filled poem at a time. I poured all of the emotion that I could muster onto the page. I released everything I could find. And the pages listened without judgment, without pity. Poetry became a place where I could put my grief when I had nowhere else to put it. It was the hardest period of my life. My families and friends would try to reach out to comfort me, but I was numb. Poetry, however, became that blanket. About 2 weeks into my grieving, so that's 1 month now I'm in China, a friend sent me a poster that there was a poetry slam happening in Chengdu. I had 29 RMB left in my name. And I took that 29 RMB and I booked a Didi, what we call a taxi back in the West. And I went to the poetry show. While I was there, many artists and poets performed from all over the world. That night, a Nigerian poet won the competition. And during the intermission, they asked the audience to volunteer. And after volunteering, they asked, would anyone like to share a poem that they wrote? I took the mic and I shared a poem that I wrote to my father because I was grieving. After I finished, the host of the slam looked at the audience and she looked at me and she said, I believe we have found next year poetry slam winner. She was correct. The next year, I won that competition. Soon after this, I immersed myself in the local poetry community, which we call Spittoon. We started as a room filled with strangers, and we became family. Poetry became my happy place, my angry place, my healing place, my sensual, sexy space, my chill space. Poetry was my everything. I'll now perform one of the pieces that I wrote to my father during that time when I was grieving, and it's called Watch Him. Watch Him. Watch Him. As He sits beneath the breadfruit tree, watch Him. As He contemplates our next meal, watch Him. As He smiles and pretends that all is well, I watch Him. As He chops grass happily to put shoes on my feet, Lord knows, I watch Him. As He puts me in the bath and shower, watch Him. As He sings me lullaby and spread me across His lap and pat me gentle to sleep, I watch Him. As He repeatedly woke at 3 a.m. each morning to clean the filthy streets, I watch Him. As He never complains, God have mercy. Man, I watch Him. As He shares from what little He carries, Jesus knows, I watch Him. As He loves me unconditionally, my superhero, my puppy, I watch Him. Poetry became my home. And if you're experiencing emotions that you cannot understand, don't just take my word for it. I dare you, type into any search engine the emotional benefits of poetry, and you will be amazed. There are so many research that has been done to support my claim that poetry has been so good to me. You will also see that there are literatures and research that other people have experienced and put into writing to share that poetry has been healing and a healing space. Because sometimes poetry is not just about creating literature. Sometimes poetry is simply about creating space. So, if you're currently grieving, if you are madly in love, if you are brokenhearted, if you're happy, angry, frustrated, with no outlet, then pick up a pen. Put the thoughts you have in your head on the paper, because poetry can be very healing. Today, I don't just write poetry, but I create. And I have started painting in such a way that I allowed my poetry to be on the canvas to meet the visual art. Today, I create paintings that are paired with poetry, allowing images and language to speak one to the other. I am not by any means a good artist, but it is something that brings me peace. One of the ongoing projects that I'm working on at the moment is called 1,000 Words. The title comes from the saying that says, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Thoughts through the series, I explore identity, vulnerability, faith, womanhood, grief, joy, and the stories that we carry in our bodies. Poetry has also led me to become a published author, where you saw I read my poem from my first book. It's called Blackface. For my 31st birthday, I decided to give myself the gift of publishing my first book, an anthology of poems that I call Blackface, embodying who I am, my blackness, the black community, my Jamaicanness, my where I belong and the people that I belong to. And this is what this book celebrates. For someone who believed that poetry belonged in the cemetery, I believe that this is miraculous. Because the things we sometimes create to heal ourselves often end up healing and helping others to heal. Every year for the past 5 years, I volunteer as a judge or as a host at the International Poetry School's slam competition here in Chengdu. And every year my heart is filled as I see youngsters from ages 7 to 18 leave their heart on the page, because poetry does not belong in the cemetery. It belongs in the classroom, in your living rooms, on journals, on canvases, in communities. It belongs wherever people are trying to survive. So if you're sitting here today and you're carrying emotions that are too heavy, so if you're sitting here today and carrying emotion that feels too heavy to hold alone, try therapy. However, along with therapy, try poetry. Give it a chance. You might be surprised by what survives once it finally has somewhere to live that's not inside your head. And true to my nature, I will leave you with a fun poem. And this one is called Fat in China. And it's dedicated to one of my students who pulled me aside one day when I was teaching at the primary level to ask me, "Teacher, why are you so fat?" So, Fat in China. Teaching my grade 4 Chinese class, a kid pulls me quietly to the corner. He whispers, "Teacher, why are you so fat?" Mouth open wide, standing in awe. What keen observation. This boy must be a scholar. I wonder if he had drawn inference and made cross-reference and found out my deep, dark secret. I'm also black. Giving him the biggest grin, all 32 teeth showing. Boy, I'm hot. Hell yeah, I'm fat. I looked at his chubby little cheeks. Find your seat, handsome. Let's carry on this lesson. He looked back at me like, me, handsome, and not. It's not his fault he's used to one type of amazing, so this amazing looks amusing, which doesn't make this amazing any less amazing, because I am beautiful. This masterpiece of a woman smiling at me, barely able to muster words in English as she spit the words, "You are beautiful." I flipped the script and hit her back with the same lyrics, "You are beautiful." Immediately covering her face, no, not me, I'm fat. Okay, so I'm a little confused here. I must admit I didn't pay much attention in school, but let's do the math. Me equals you times 2. So if you are fat, that means that I am fat times 2, which means if I am beautiful and being fat makes you not beautiful, I think you should be beautiful times 2. Beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.